All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to our Project Felix discussion on impermanence. I'm Mario. I'm one of the dudes behind this. And really looking forward to discussing some of this stuff. I think it's going to help us out a lot.
Hey guys, I'll go since there was a little delay there. I'm Jerry Shelton, dialing in from South Carolina. Is here to give my take on the subject of impermanence. Glad to be here.
Hey, I'm Aaron. I'm here to join in on the conversation. I'm with the Project Felix as well.
And last, and maybe sometimes least, this is fine. I'm Brad, and I'm here also to talk about impermanence and wherever else this conversation goes, and also, here on a video call to stare at myself and say, "Man, I look so good," while everybody else talks, as the meme says. But not really. That's all a lie. That's hopefully enough to relax some people in the beginning here, so we're not getting too uptight. But we're going to lead in talking about the subject of impermanence, which has roots in all kinds of different cultures and stuff from all around the world, applications since human beings have been around, applications to today. And I'm going to start off with a dictionary definition just to make sure everybody's on the same page. And the dictionary definition goes, noun, the fact or quality of being temporary or short-lived. And in a sentence, the novel poignantly explores the impermanence of childhood, the ebb and the flow of memories and experiences that make up our disappearing past. So, as I mentioned before, this is a multicultural idea, and I know Mario's got some stuff on that to share.
When I was looking into the idea of impermanence, initially I felt it's just a fancy word for change. But as I started looking into it, this is a larger concept that's kind of had basically roots in a lot of different cultures throughout the millennia, I guess, from Buddhism, Hinduism, even with the Greek philosophers. It seems to be prevalent in there. Western philosophy sometimes describes it as becoming. And part of that, I think, that resonated with me and how it's applicable towards some of the discussions we've had is this idea helps us embrace more of a personal growth mindset as opposed to a fixed mindset. And, we've talked about this before, but with the world changing, going through political, social change, I think having a fixed mindset kind of ultimately limits one's personal growth and development, whether it be socially, professionally, academically. And so some of these ideas help me embrace that growth mindset, or lack of a better term, staying on your toes, kind of accepting, as we call, the ebb and flow of life, whether it be military stuff or anything like that. What was it? If I know how to pronounce this, Heracula. No, what's this dude's name? I always have a problem with the Greek ones. Heraclitus, or I forget. But even they talk about everything flowing, and that's where I think some of these ideas can help us navigate hardship, and extracting some of the lessons from these can help us stay on our toes so that we're prepared for whatever life throws at us. I know we tend to talk about some things as far in the EOD lens, because that's where a lot of us spent most of our time, military, EOD. And I always thought that those that fared better were the ones who were adaptable to the things that were thrown at them, whether it be operational, logistical, or anything like that. what are your guys' takeaways from the idea of impermanence? How do you stay on your toes? How do you cultivate that growth mindset?
So while you were talking about that, and I didn't even write this down before while thinking about this topic, but I just did just now, is the Stockdale paradox. And I think that definitely applies here. And if people haven't heard of it, it's you must never confuse the faith that you will prevail in the end, which you can never afford to lose, with the discipline to confront the most brutal facts of your current reality, whatever they might be. And for anybody who's unaware, James Stockdale, Admiral Stockdale, was a highest-ranking prisoner in the Hanoi Hilton in Vietnam. Wound up earning the Medal of Honor. I believe he at least had something to do, if not invented the tap code. And he essentially kept a lot of POWs alive, basically, like a very absurd large number. So he's crucial in that. So for him to be able to say that, to me, gives that thought a lot of weight. When they're talking about, and this comes up, man's search for meaning, lessons from Hanoi Hilton. It's come up in history many times, but they would have people in these horrific situations that they can't do anything about. And, you get stuck in that mindset of, this is never going to change. This is going to be the same for the rest of my life. And sometimes maybe you'll come out to like an issue, and maybe what you'll do instead is you'll put everything into, if somebody said some magical date, like St. Patty's Day, we're all getting out of here because I heard a rumor. And then St. Patty's Day comes and goes and nothing changes. That's that magical part of not being realistic and not confronting your reality. And then when that happens, people, no kidding, lose the will to live and die. And I think that kind of plays into, being able to be adaptable and change, but also be faithful that, good things will come eventually, because whatever the hardship is, it could go for a very long time, but it's not forever, is kind of where I come back to on that.
Sounds like this too shall pass sort of thing. This is a pretty good, easy quote. I think I like, maybe within the last 6 to 8 months, I think I've been using it. It's kind of like, this too shall pass, whatever it is, even though it sucks. Whatever it is. Here's a recent example. I'm painting my deck right now. I have a huge deck, and I've just been painting it for days. I asked my wife yesterday, I said, am I ever going to be done painting this deck? And she said yes. So I know that eventually I will either burn the deck to the ground and I won't have to finish painting it, or I'll just finish painting it. So this too shall pass. But to me, that's kind of like impermanence. But one thing I think also from the definition is that, like, I think, did you say the past is disappearing, kind of in part of that definition? I think that's true, and also some of it is not true as well. There are some things in our past like we can hold on to, or there's also some other things that are just kind of like still there, like even thinking like old movies or something like that. The old movie was in the past. Like everybody knows the greatest movie in the world is Big Trouble in Little China. But even though that movie was in the past, we can still take advantage of it today. So I think that time does pass, and I think really the impermanence of it, it's important, I believe, to focus on what you're doing, why you're doing it, so that when that time does pass, you have something, like you said, to bring into the future with you, something to move forward with. Like, when VHS tapes turned into DVDs, I had to put my Big Trouble in Little China VHS tape on the shelf, and I had to buy a DVD. Then when it went to Blu-ray player, I had to put that on the shelf and buy the Blu-ray. And now that everything's being streaming and so on download, now I have to download it. But I can always take, what I learned from the past and then bring it forward, but it's impermanent. I'm still going to watch that movie because it's an amazing movie, but I'm just not going to watch it on VHS anymore. And I don't know if that makes any sense or not.
It does, because I think if you didn't adapt, you'd still be in your room watching Big Trouble in Little China on a VHS, refusing to accept changes and getting mad because things aren't still the same. Like, that's still not what everybody else does.
Yeah, so I think the point I'm making is that I can still hold on to something that's great, which is the movie, but I'm changing as time changes forward. I'm bringing it with me into the future.
I dig it.
Before we move on, I just wanted to throw out, Trevor, did you have something?
Just continuing on. Did you want to switch gears or add something?
Real quick, just on that same note, and to me, like, in a nutshell, what impermanence is exactly what you just talked about, Webb. And it's remembering those past things, whether they're good or bad. If something is going on and it's good, it's important to remember that that's not forever. Also, it's too easy to get stuck in that and not maybe take it for granted sometimes, and be deliberate and mindful about really appreciating those good memories for later on in life. At the same time, if something is going terrible, that's also not forever, and using those good memories from before to help you get through whatever sucks right now and get back to the goodness, and also knowing and accepting and understanding that whichever it is, life will not only be one of those, right? Life will change constantly. It'll be good, it'll suck, it'll maybe be good for longer, maybe it'll suck for longer, but in the end, like, at its very root, like, to me, that's a huge way that I personally use impermanence. And to me, it ties right back to what you were just talking about.
And then I was going to add that to me, impermanence is really not so much about looking back or even looking forward. If you appreciate impermanence and you see it in your life, that things come and go in your life, then it should motivate you to live in the now, appreciate what you have in the moment, whatever that is. If it's, if it's struggle, think about, why are you struggling? Are you holding on too tight to something that you can't change? Can't affect it to go back to the way it was or whatever, that, dang, I really, the quality of the tape versus the digital, is, I'd like it better on vinyl. All these conversations are just kind of like things that happen to you. But what you can do with it in the present moment is just enjoy that those things happened, and, be hopeful that maybe in the future other things will happen. But, good or bad, I think about like Brad getting ready to go through a PCS from overseas in a really high volume, logistics crippled, world, and there's going to be some stress ahead. So you can either think about all the stress you're about to have, or you could just appreciate that through impermanence, you've gotten through things before and you have the capability to get through them again. And in a couple months, you'll look back and not even think about that anymore, right? So why hold on to something that's stressful in your future that you're envisioning and you're playing this out in your head? Just when you feel the stress, recognize it, consider it, and then watch it pass away, from you. And then a new thought comes in, and that's like everything. So nothing lasts. So enjoy what you have in the moment, live life every day to the fullest. And so I, definitely going back to Brad, I see you doing that, and, canyoning today and in the mountains and climbing around and stuff. That's what you're doing. You're embracing life as it's handed to you right now, knowing that there's going to be struggles in the future, and knowing also you have peace of mind that you're going to handle those situations with grace, and you'll soften around it rather than clinging onto it like, So that's kind of my philosophy for the moment. Also,
like laying awake, thinking about all the cringy things you said in 7th grade.
yeah, I mean, you can't deny that those things are going to come and go, but that's if you pay attention to those and basically you witness them, you see them, you learn from them. That's kind of how you do it. I've noticed talking with older people, like not just me, like almost 60, but like people in their 80s, they tend to approach things from a softer lens, like a grace to it, like passing of classmates. Yeah, I'm starting to see that myself as I'm getting older. People I went to high school with just aren't here anymore. That's going to continue to happen, in the future. And but once that plays out, you start to have you kind of put things in certain context, and you're able to approach those things with grace. And it's the only word I can think of that really fits. Not happiness or glee. You're not like not interested or uncaring, that bad things happen to people, but you have a way to put it in perspective because wisdom, all right, years and years and years of watching yourself react to change and seeing it come and go and knowing that here I am, and things are the way they are and I'm okay, or I'm not okay and I got to work on that, or not. That's impermanence is great because you could almost take it like in a cartoonish definition way of just being like, whatever, c'est la vie, It's really not that, it's really just more about understanding and appreciating that it is, not so much trying to practice it, because you really can't practice it. You can only just sort of witness it. I think one of the things that helps, if you don't have longevity yet, is meditation can help you get there, because it trains you to have a thought come into your mind, note that it's there, and then watch it go away. That's an example of impermanence happening right there in front of your eyes. And that's a thought, and those are going to happen multiple times a day. In the same way as encounters, conversations, friends, family members, your pet, are going to come into your life, maybe for a longer period, maybe decades, but still it'll change. And so just knowing, get some sort of peace that, hey, it's not going to end anything. For me, I'm going to keep going until I'm not, right? And so I don't know. It's an interesting, conceptually, it's pretty straightforward, but like Mario said in our discussion before, how we apply it is I think very individual. Hey, I wanted to pause real quick to bring in Steve, and I saw an unknown talking head in here, but I just wanted, Steve, if you had anything to introduce yourself, jump into the combo.
Hey guys, how you doing? Yeah, I'm super excited to listen to this one. The only one thing I wanted to add right now is just that it made me think about, with what you guys were saying, that it also allows for calm, right, in those moments. I think if you're able to think about life that way, and big moments like Brad's move and other things, I think that process of impermanence, or being aware of that, can allow you to be calm in those moments. And I think that's huge when so much of this stuff is anxiety inducing, and being able to think things through that way can really just take that from a highly anxious situation in life to, okay, I know the deal. I know this is part of what will also come to pass, and allowing for calm in those moments that might be turbulent. I think that's a really cool part of impermanence.
Appreciate you adding that, and thanks for joining us, Stephen. One of the things I was thinking about when you guys were talking is Murphy. And one of the things I was thinking about was, what if Murphy is the harbinger of impermanence? and how our career field from an early age, early time has embraced the importance of understanding that things will never go according to plan 100% of the time, and it's never been a checklist type thing, but it's in my mind, it's always been drilled into us that it is a fact, and it is a part of life, and it is a part of how we do business. And I wanted to add a quote that our friend Dan wrote, or I think we have on our notes here. I love this. So feel free to add to it as you guys want. But Dan says here, freedom to deviate gives people freedom to innovate. And I think that's something that's been with us as far as TTPs and stuff, because I tend to go into that. But looking at that, understanding that how we react when things don't go according to plan is probably the biggest part where that anxiety comes in that you were talking about, Stephen. It's how one rolls with the punches of life, whether you're on an op or you're just in life in general, you know. And I just couldn't help but thinking about Murphy. You know, Murphy's always been there, and we can have this great plan set up and great framework and try to implement this. And sometimes it'll work. It'll go off without a hitch. But when it doesn't, how do we adapt? How do we overcome? And those are some of the things that I was thinking about when you were talking about that. And yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of throw out there real quick, just in case anybody watches this isn't EOD. I don't know if anybody else personifies Murphy like we do. I imagine some other people probably do, but essentially what we're talking about here is a personification of Murphy's Law, like an actual freaking gremlin that makes things go wrong because they can, just so everybody's on the same page, in case anybody hasn't heard of that personification before.
I think accepting impermanence and practicing it is also another way to stimulate growth. And I like how Stephen saved me from myself as I was stumbling through that word. But yes, it's all about like that it's for mental health, it's for peace of mind and those things, because you're not hanging on and clutching on as this thing rolls off the mountain. You know, you're just like, okay, that happened. But for growth, think about it. You could say, oh, that shit happened. It was unfair. I'm mad about it. And then I can be super upset about it for a period of time until I'm no longer upset about it, or I'm less upset than I was a month ago. And you can just hang on to that hate and that anger and that disappointment forever and ever. Or you can just use that moment as, well, that happened. It was probably bound to happen anyway. How can I grow from that? How can I move forward because of that, not despite it? How has it changed me? What can I think about when I think about that? That thing that happened. And I think for that, it's also a positive way that is tied to growth.
The back to that quote that you read in the beginning there, Mario, about freedom to deviate gives people freedom to innovate. It kind of makes me wonder. Just looking even on a broad scale of the American military structure versus other countries, even European, the Russians, any of them. There was an article from Afghanistan a long time ago with a French reporter who was embedded with an American infantry unit in Afghanistan. And, the way that we run operations is so much different. Like, with so many other militaries, the officer has all the information and is the one in charge and is the only one that can give orders and make things happen. And that's not how we do things in the American military. And that's a huge part of, what at least some would say gives us an edge in certain circumstances. But but it doesn't mean that, everybody is given that freedom even still, and like we can't get better at it. I think about something I heard from somebody I learned a lot from. I'll put it that way. They kept telling me that us EOD techs have to stay within our TOs because obviously they didn't understand what we actually do, and it's just like that mindset permeates though around other jobs. There are lots of jobs in the military that have that mindset, and I wonder how we can help them to see that. I mean, it's the chief of staff's order, right? Accelerate, change, or lose, and you can't accelerate change if you can't deviate. Like that's not change. That's status quo if you don't. So I wonder if there's a way. This is just future thinking and I don't know, cerebral stuff, I guess, but I wish there was a way we could spread that around. I don't know.
I think you just hit on one of those things we like to talk about all the time: cultural differences. Different countries, armies, different AFSCs within the Air Force. Different cultures allow different things to happen and accept different things, and so you're part of that. It's kind of hard to change from within if everybody's doing it the same way. But if you're in a career field that accepts innovation and listens to it and appreciates it, maybe your chances are a little better.
Yeah, that's a good question as far as how to change the culture and some of the things that we've learned in our career field. Because I agree with you. I think we have had in our doctrine more freedom of lateral movement, so to speak, than maybe some other career fields that are very checklist oriented and I guess a little bit more structured. I don't know if that's kind of where you're going with this, Brad. And that's how do you give people the space to try new things and to innovate? How do you do that without the hammer coming down saying you didn't stay within the specified guidelines, essentially like a robot, like a machine? And that's one of the things that we've talked about for a while, is that the human element is much different and more dynamic than mindless automatons, these machines. And that's kind of been why we wanted to, at least I wanted to start Project Felix, was to take care of and protect the human element and the human part of the military, whether it be still active duty or the veteran community. Is that, we're not an F6. We're not, a robot that we would just drive down range and just, control with a joystick. How do you cultivate an environment to innovate in a dynamic situation? I don't know.
And on top of that, there's a direct, I think, I don't want to say positive statements out there. I feel there is a very direct link to not just the military sense and mission accomplishment, but your life and your life accomplishment, right? Because if you try to live your life by a checklist, you're not going to live a very happy life. Like if I don't promote, this cycle, if I don't get that whatever award, if I don't get this, if I don't get X, I won't be happy. If I don't get Y, I won't be happy. And I can't get Y if I don't get X. So I have to go in this checklist and I have to fill these boxes and all this other bull crap. And all you're doing is putting yourself in a needless cycle of I need to get X so that I can get Y and Z, and you're missing out on so much life. And, I think that's to kind of bring this back to, like a mental fortitude scenario, which, has parallels by all means to military missions and objectives and stuff. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, that's perfect. Think about, you guys are active duty. Some of you in the chat now are reserve. Reserve or guard, Aaron? Reserve, right? Full AGR?
Guard.
Refresh me on that. Okay, guard. Yeah. you know, it's funny, like those things that Brad was talking about, those rings that we have to, you know, swing on and grab and stuff as we go through our military careers. And then you get to the end of it, like me, you know, and you got as far as you could go, as high as they let you go, as long as you could stay there for, you know, amassed all the, you know, chest candy and plaques and stuff to put on the wall and everything. And then it was over. And so, like, you know, then I moved on. And then it's funny, I was moving some stuff around when I was doing some construction in the house and stuff, and I had this big rubbish skip in the front driveway, right? And throwing stuff out there, and one of the contractors was out there having a cigarette, and I came out with a short stack of wooden plaques and stuff from my staff sergeant days that I just had in a box somewhere. You know, I've been dragging these things around, you know, Airman of the Quarter or whatever plaques, right? And I was just like, what am I doing? I'm not hanging these up anywhere. And what would it mean if I did? I'm not planning on giving it to my kids or whatever. So I'm just like, and he saw what was going on, and he was like, whoa, what are you doing, dude? Those are like, wow, you got that. Wow, that was great. And I'm like, yeah, that was like 25 years ago, dude. It's okay. I'm okay with letting go. You know, maybe I should have recycled it or something. I don't know. But, you know, it's that's the other thing too. Like, you know, I did hang on to those things for a long time. But then also it's the human aspect of all of this stuff, right? We have these landmarks and trophies and things that we put in our life to recognize things that we've done and accomplishments, but it doesn't last, you know? And there you go. You just move on through, and nobody remembers that, you know, that happened back 25 years ago or whatever. And if they did, cool. Like, okay, you know, your picture's on a wall in a hallway somewhere. That's okay. That's a very human thing to do, though. I was thinking about, you know, when we, in our world, you know, we have building dedications and road dedications, and when we name things and landmarks after our fallen. And it's very, you know, heartwarming. I was just at one last week or 2 weeks ago. But, you know, you think about one day those buildings won't be around anymore. Then what happens to, you know, hopefully, you know, our human side wants us to keep that, you know, pull that off the wall and move it to a new facility and put it there. But reality just states that it's unlikely that things will ever last, you know, like that. So is it the thing that we're holding on to that represents something, or can that be in our heart and keep that in our heart going forward and stuff? So that I was actually thinking about that this week, and was looking for an opportunity to throw that in there as an example. I don't know what you guys think about that impermanence with things and stuff.
Oh boy, what happened there? Sorry, I'm really good at this game. Can you guys hear me?
You make it look good. Yeah, you're good, buddy.
I was gonna say I was really thinking about sort of like the left and right of what you're talking about, not politically. I just mean the boundaries of like the idea of impermanence with looking at things that are passing that may not, you know, acknowledging that this is really important during this time. And I think that's why we hold on to these things, because we feel like we assigned a certain value to them, right, at a time in our lives. And so we are like, well, I gotta hold on to this. You know, I was even thinking about it the other day. I was like, man, what about my going away from my first duty station? You know, where is that? Just kind of like remembering stuff and being okay with that, because we think it's healthy, right? It is healthy that you're able to say, hey, you know, that was a long time ago and I've moved on. And when it ended, it kind of ended. And then I'm on to sort of the next chapter. And we all hold that up as a really healthy, that's certainly better than the alternative, right? Where a lot of people can be stuck, can get in a rut because they miss it so much. And maybe their personal value was so tied to those things that now they feel like, well, what am I, right? And then it made me think about like the far end of that, which is, well, nothing really matters anyway, you know, and you don't want to go there either. You don't want to have that mentality where it's sort of like, well, what does it all mean? Because in 400 years, you know, no one's going to know this and that and the other thing. And so I think part of the challenge, and I'm loving listening to you guys, because I'm thinking, you know, part of that challenge is like, how do you have that balance? You know, how do we achieve the balance of being able to say, wow, that had value. That I learned so much. There's a lot there that's significant and important and meaningful, versus, you know, and then also being able to sort of go, that's nice, and letting it pass by. As we talk about mindfulness, it's like this kind of thing of allowing it to pass by, and that's nice. And how awesome is it that we can maybe pull it back up and look at it for a moment and remember, and remember good, bad times, things we learned, and then allow it to then pass again. Man, that's such a big part of life and the success of mental health, to be able to get to that place. And then, you know, those of us who want to help people in that way, in the mental health way, a big part of that is the fear of that hopelessness of what does it all mean, and not allowing people to go to that place, where you want to pull them back to like, oh, this did have meaning, you know, and trying to find meaning and purpose. And so it's a balance, as many things in life are. And so that's just some of what I was thinking when you were saying that, Turbo.
Yeah, I was thinking that initially when we talked about, when we started off about impermanence and, you know, this too shall pass, that sort of mindset, I think it's important also to have a recognition of when something's good. Like if there's a good moment that you're having, or you're having a good day, or you're just having a good experience, you know, B-Rad, you may never get to go into the place you're at ever again, you know, hopefully you will. But I'm sure that it's pretty easy to recognize how awesome it is when you're out there in the mountains trudging around. And it doesn't have to be some sort of big, vast experience. It could be a simple experience, or just something that's present. Like today, this is a good experience. This is something positive. This conversation won't last forever. It's impermanent. But just like Big Trouble in Little China, we'll have this recorded so we can watch it again. But I think that you know, on the same aspect of, you know, if you're struggling, you know, this too shall pass, and also recognizing when the moment is good, when you're having a good moment or a good experience, or you're connecting with someone or several other people, like that's a good experience. It's important to remember that and take that forward as well. We're not just always learning lessons. You know, if you have a good moment or a good experience, you can be like, wow, that was really cool. I'd like to do that again, or something similar. So that may help you stay on your toes, so to speak, Mario, right? If we're having good conversations, or we're having good experiences, or we're fulfilling a purpose or finding meaning somewhere, it's important to recognize that. Sometimes I think it's easier to notice when things suck than it is because when things suck, it really sucks, right? You're like, this sucks. I'm painting this deck every day. This sucks. And then, you know, eventually, this is just a recent example for me. When I finish painting the deck, I'll be outside, hanging out with my family, or I'll have friends over, and it'll be a nice time. Yesterday, part of the deck that was finished, we had our son out there, and he's starting to walk. So he's able to stand up on his own and take a couple of steps before he falls on his face. And that phase of his life is impermanent, because eventually he's going to know how to walk. So it's not going to be such a miracle that we're watching him stand up on his own and walk around. Eventually, he's going to be running from light socket to light socket, trying to stick tweezers in it or something like that, which will also be an impermanent, hopefully, situation. But I think it's really important to recognize not just, well, this too shall pass. It's a tough, a tough spot, like, oh, this is a good thing. I need to remember this, or I need to enjoy this, because this won't last forever either.
And that is where I wanted to drop a quote, if you guys don't mind, just one sentence from the Dalai Lama, who said, "Awareness of impermanence and appreciation of our human potential will give us a sense of urgency that we must use every precious moment." Maybe that ties in pretty good.
I love that quote, and that to me speaks to the importance of accepting impermanence as an idea, because then I think it ultimately opens us up more to new opportunities. Because you guys, there's a few of you that just finished, are going through a PCS here shortly. If that's not the best, that's not a good example of impermanence, especially going from overseas to CONUS or something like that. Man, I don't know what it is. And Weber, you talked about being in the suck. I remember some PCSs, man, I just can't wait to get through this. Like, being in limbo status sucks. But like you said, this too shall pass. And in the moment, it's tough. But acceptance of the idea of impermanence, I think, can ultimately lead to increased awareness of new opportunities. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, you have to know that you got something else coming. So you have to have something on the horizon. And if you're stuck in that mindset of, this sucks, this is going to be like this forever, it's going to be, you're looking at what's directly in front of your face because it sucks, right? The Murphy troll is there doing the best he can. But it is, I think, important to have some things out on the horizon. I think that's why we all try to set small goals and big goals and things like that, and revisit those sort of things so we can keep on our toes and moving forward. But yeah, if you're stuck in a rut and you can't get out of it, and you can't look towards the future, well, then that idea of impermanence becomes like less impossible. Like, okay, this sucks, it's going to suck forever. So it is important, I think, especially to have something on the horizon. Just like remembering those good moments, like my son starting to walk, that's a great moment. Well, what's he going to do next? What else is he going to do that we're going to enjoy? Things that's awesome. Let's see what we can do to get him there. Like, let's have what else is on the horizon. He's going to be talking soon. That's going to be great. So I got to watch my F-bombs and all that other stuff, because I don't want all of his first words to be what Dad says when he's running around painting the deck.
See, that's healthy. I know that a lot of times parents, when the kids are young, and you just have this moment where you look at them across the room and you're just like, oh my God, that's so cute, and then you also kind of destroy yourself with that. Well, it's not going to last. It's like, oh God, like you just want them to be young forever, right? And you can't. But so like what you're describing is like a healthy appreciation that I'm really enjoying this right now, because it's not they're going to grow, and I'm going to be right there with them, helping shape that. I'm going to be teaching them with my every move, whether I say the right thing or not. They're going I'm going to have to deal with that too. And it's a healthy outlook. Some people can get really depressed when they think of those futures of, gosh, what world am I bringing my kid into, and what's their future going to be like now that, this has happened and stuff, and that's kind of a negative emotion, right? A negative way to approach change in your own children as they grow. Worry about, oh, am I going to be able to afford to send them to school, and worrying about their health and their environment and things like that. So I think you're right on track. And I think those are really great examples of how you can take impermanence and make it a positive, and that helps you like have a good perspective on life rather than flipping it to a negative of, oh, I'm going to miss this one day, And before you know it, Webb, they'll be 20 and 29. Oh my God. But it's fun. Yeah. It's a great ride, man.
Yeah. And the first years passed by very, very fast, He's 14 months. So he doesn't know it, but when he's walking, I'm like, okay, just take a couple more steps, because as soon as he can start walking, then we're going to be hiking around, And then he's got this tiny little fishing pole. It's got a little crank on it. And I'm like, here, this is how you do this. Because as soon as you can walk and as soon as you can do this, we can go fishing all the time. I can just be like, I got to take him fishing. We have to go. He's got to go fishing. We got to go. So that's like, when I see those things, that's something that for him and I is on the horizon. Yeah, hopefully he likes to fish.
Webb, something you brought up there, both talking about, the family stuff, and there was something else you mentioned previously, made me think about the importance of connection and connectedness. And this has come up in many of the great reads most of us have either read or at least read passages of, like Tribe and some other stuff, talking about connection, right? Like going through those shitty things like by yourself is most of the time I feel a lot harder, right? But if you go through those shitty times with people that you stay connected to, I think that can help to get through those times and and stop, not stop, but reduce the amount of past obsession. And at the same time, I don't know how many times I think back to when we went camping on Pine Creek at Petticoat Junction, through the motorcycles in the truck, and did like 2 8-hour days on the bikes in a row. Saw you go hang gliding off a freaking cliff out there at one of those state parks, like, and without having somebody to share that experience with from 8 years ago, however long it was, it doesn't hit as hard sometimes too. And it's not to say that you can't enjoy solitude and have some awesome memories solo, but I've also found that, talking about the good version of impermanence, meaning like remembering the good times and being mindful and deliberate during those to permanently remember the details that you can. That's what came to my mind, was the connection can make that even stronger. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, we talk about that all the time. And that's when my wife and I, we got engaged and you took pictures for us. I mean, that was only a moment in time, but, thinking about things that are awesome, that was that whole weekend. I mean, we even had somebody else from our shop there, and you and Jackie were there, and we had our dogs. So it was just kind of like this whole conglomerate thing of, and my wife, she had no idea what was happening. She just thought we were going out for an adventure, which we do often. But that was an impermanent moment, and we still talk about that all the time. We looked at pictures of that time, and that was, 6 years ago, I think, almost about. And that was a lot of fun. And then after, to celebrate, yeah, we rode motorcycles around for 2 days straight. And that was a good thing. And there's definitely a connection there. Camping, riding motorcycles, eating food by the fire, trouncing around in the creek. It was a great time. And then, of course, there's that one girl that was hang gliding that just got completely decimated by those trees. That poor girl. I hope she's all right. But yeah, I agree with that.
What about the negative aspect of going through hard times? Can anybody speak to that?
I think if the negative aspect of impermanence is that if there isn't a good support network in place for healthy tethers to help and assist when somebody goes into that valley, it's easy to stay down there and think that's where you're going to stay. And it's, you know, it's hard to embrace this too shall pass when all you can't see light. You're down in that valley, and it's hard to see when the next thing on the horizon. And so I think some of the discussions we've had in the past with your 3 to 5 healthy habits, citing some things from Atomic Habits, but just knowing that, I guess in my mind, the nature of life is the ups and downs. Struggle Well talks about the curve, the sine wave, or whatever you want to call it, the ebb and flow. Knowing that that's there has helped me realize that, like Weber said, this too shall pass. But I think different people have different levels of awareness and know what's possible or what's not based off of their own experiences. I wrote it in the notes here, impermanence, the shift from active duty and career to retired life was, that was a part of my identity. What Stephen was talking about. I had no idea that I derived much of my identity from the badge and the uniform and the work we did. That was the negative aspect of it. But the positive aspect of that was I had a world full of opportunity that I had a hard time realizing because I probably didn't have the best network and the best practices to help get me out of that valley and understand that I'm not just going to sit here for a couple of years, that there is the ebb and flow. And accepting that took me a long time. I don't know if you guys can speak to any of that. But yeah, go ahead, Jerbo.
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing with those last 3 inputs really is, life is about positives and negatives, right? And we can't just chase the good ones and avoid the bad ones. Impermanence, the understanding of it allows us to approach negative things in our lives in a way that is healthy, right? If we just avoid it, we're not really doing anything. It's still going to be there. We still have to deal with it, right? So sometimes we confuse, like, we have to be doing it, to the max. We have to be happy all the time or else, right? And I think that the point is to be able to get to a point where impermanence and understanding of it and witnessing it and seeing it in your life every day and getting used to that idea allows you to approach the tough times with, graciously, as I keep repeating, and where it's like, okay, that's this too shall pass, right? The positive things, hey, I'm on a roller coaster at Disney with my kids. I'm having the best day ever. Everybody's happy. We're all vibing together. And that's a memory I'm just going to be like, I'm going to save that one. And that's going to be part of my tapestry, just the good times, right? But I'm also, as a impermanence guy, I'm going to remember those times too, where I had some significant challenge in my life, and I approached those with grace and didn't struggle too bad with it. Where a lot of people were kind of surprised, like, how'd you get through that? I would never have been able to get through that. I'm like, well, sit down and let me tell you about impermanence, right? It's a mindset. It comes with wisdom. And it comes with experience, and it comes with being intentional about knowing when it's happening to you. Sometimes we don't. Like, me in traffic. You know, I'm sounding like the Dalai Lama right here right now, but you get me in traffic and stuff on 95, and I'm like, all that's out the window. This sucks forever. Everybody. Yeah. I wish I could just kind of like remember what I'm saying now in those moments, right? In the moment, and just be like, you know, I'm going to get up. My exit's coming up in about 500 miles. Won't be long now. That guy will stop tailgating me eventually. La la la. Sorry. Let me stop here.
I was gonna say, oh boy, growing up in New York, New Jersey, that's lots of memories right there. But I was gonna say, you mentioned avoidance, and I was thinking about avoidance. You know, Brad, you asked about negatives, and I think, you know, impermanence is not that, right? It's not to avoid, as you pointed out, Turbo. It's to, you know, if there is a moment that you need some time with, that's okay. It's not about sending, you know, life moments that are negative, you know, getting rid of them. You know what I mean? It's more of a flow. People have used the word flow a lot, and I think it's important to point out that it's not avoiding, and that impermanence, you can stay with it if you need to and work through it if you need to, and impermanence can still be there as the understanding that this will pass. This is tough right now, but it is part of life, my story, my struggle right now. And you know, so yeah, I just wanted to mention that, and Turbo, you beat me to it, like the avoidance. It's not that. It's not avoiding.
I think one of the negative things to it, to get back to your question, Brad, I think it was, what are some of the negative things of struggling? Is that what you asked, Brad?
What I was intending to ask was community connection. How did that help you get through some of the negative times versus not? Was kind of what I was getting at. Not like the negatives of impermanence, but a negative experience and having a community or not. How did that change the end result or where you are today? Maybe not an end result, but a journey. That was what I was kind of trying to wordify, but I might not have.
Say hello. Say hi. Say hi.
Hey, buddy.
Hey.
Wow. You having some honey Dijon mustard?
Yeah, some mustard.
This kid really knows how to cut the mustard.
What a cutie. Hey, buddy.
Say
What's
hi.
up? Wow. Who is everybody? Are you looking around?
That's right.
Does he still do that?
Yeah,
belly bombs?
I haven't done it that much recently, but he still likes it. Thank you. He's just now waving.
Oh yeah. That's awesome, man. And we have it preserved on the recording, so that's great.
Will be forever immortalized.
It's no VHS tape, but
Close. So I was kind of thinking about so having somebody or having a team of people to help through a time of struggle, obviously is positive. And I think someone mentioned the word practice, and I think you can have a healthy way of practicing a time of struggle, and you can have a very unhealthy way of practicing getting through times of struggle. I think the more help that you have, obviously, it's going to be better. I think something that is important to understand, at least it is for me, is that every time that I struggle, whatever I do, to coach myself through or practice my way through this too shall pass is gonna either give me a leg up or a leg down the next time I struggle. So if you have bad practice habits during times of struggle, the next time that you struggle, you may not do any better with it, so to speak. It may not, I don't want to say easier, it just might be hard again. So you can, I think, negative ways of practicing getting out of that. You know, if you're just struggling and you confine yourself, or just kind of not tell anybody, or not ask for help, or not even do anything, or just don't even accept the fact that things are impermanent, right? And you just think that this is going to be like this forever. That's a negative attitude to have during that time, and I'm guilty of it, obviously. I think most people are. So if I were to take that, denial, avoidance, all that stuff, if I were to do that every time that I struggled, you know, I wouldn't necessarily be getting better at struggling. I'm just going to be seeing what's directly in front of my face, and I won't really be able to see what's on the horizon, anything that's good, you know, anything that I might want to keep myself on my toes for, so I can lean forward and move forward. So I think having a good practice, like practicing good things when you're struggling, it is important. And I think having a group of people to help you through that, you can disclose that you're actually struggling, it is definitely something that has really helped me. And every time I do that, I don't want to say it gets easier, but it seems more manageable. So if every time that I struggle and I have a healthy way, I practice a good way to see myself through, this too shall pass, the next time it happens, I'm more confident that I can get out of it. If I am just kind of sitting back and being disgruntled about it, and, you know, life sucks, this is just how it is, I just got to figure out how to deal with it, I just got to get to the next day or the next day or the next day, that's like a negative. It's a negative attitude to have. So I'm going to be more likely to fall back on that, right? Whereas if I just kind of try and practice things, ask for help, ask for help, you know, disclose, it kind of makes me a little bit better each time. It's not perfect, nothing's perfect, but I think that even recognizing that in the theme of impermanence, you know, I may not always have help from the people that are willing to help me at that time. So if I'm struggling and I can recognize that I have the help, you know, I might not get this help ever again. You know, I should try and practice taking advantage of people that want to help me, because I want to do better, and I know that I will do better if I have the help. This is getting kind of old, but here's an example. Friday, a friend of mine came over and he helped me paint my deck, and I got twice as much done in one day than I had done by myself. So I'm over here struggling, moving things around, painting, pouring the paint, mixing it, all that stuff by myself. And then one day of just one extra person being here helping me, it made a world of difference. It was incredible. So help is great, but if you don't practice getting help, it's kind of a moot point, I think, eventually, because you'll just fall back on those negative practices.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think without piggybacking, I think it's also important to recognize the right people, right? As we're talking about having people and the support, and how much that helps, and having that discernment or intuition, or knowing ourselves enough to know, you know, who are those people that are going to be supportive in those times and in those ways, as opposed to, you know, maybe those who may dwell on the negative or pull you back into permanence. when you're trying to allow things to pass by. So I just wanted to make that point that, you know, who they are is important.
Yeah, I feel like we were visiting some themes that came up during the really excellent disclosure talk you guys had that I missed but watched. You know, I I agree. I think that having that close 3 to 5 is essential, and pretty much everybody in here fits that roster for me. I know when I faced trauma before. And you know, yes, you're going to share it with those around you, the loved ones, and you're going to talk about it and kind of heal a little bit that way. But sometimes it's not enough. Sometimes you don't disclose enough. You don't share enough about your struggle, and then it's going to come out. Like you'll be just like ordering a pizza and be on the phone talking to somebody about this happening. Like, why did I share that with somebody, a total stranger? You know, you got to get it out of you. You know, you got to wring that out somehow and just pour it all out. And if you don't do it now, you're going to do it later. And you may do it in an unhealthy way, like Aaron was saying. You know, you may decide to self-medicate or push it deep down. And I think what I'm hearing from all of us who know this about ourselves and appreciate it, this comes with growing up, man. We're getting smarter about ourselves. We're gaining wisdom and life experience and stuff. So, you know, as we approach the, you know, I don't know if we'll ever get to like stoicism level or whatever, but we'll be able to look at crisis and things in the future at a point where we can become really helpful to somebody around us because we've been on the other side of it, and we know what it's like to hold things in and have it explode later or have it kind of seep out in unproductive ways. And so, especially when people that don't have the wisdom, like our youngsters, our kids, you know, that are growing up, you know, life comes at you. You know, it's funny, like as my kids are transitioning into, you know, being working adults and paying bills and stuff, you know, we have this group chat going and it's like, what the heck is this? And I get a screenshot of a bill, you know, oh, that's your ad. You got to pay that every year. Now that you have a car, you know, that's your property tax for the car. It you know, it gets less and less every year, but that's some bullshit, you know, like, yeah, it is bullshit. You know, taxation is theft. And now you know why dad's been crabby when you were like 7, you know, and like, but yeah, it's really great, you know, because now, you know, you have the wisdom to kind of explain all that stuff and how it works and everything, and know that it's just part of the way it is when you have a car, and that's just, you know, nothing to be upset about or, you know, grip onto and fuss about. It just so anyway, I think that, you know, we can all aspire as we get older and older to become a little closer to that, to the perfect version of ourselves, where we can, you know, maybe even be an inspiration to others, you know, around us that could help them in their struggles too. So yeah, find who those guys are now in your life, guys in a generic term, and hold them close. You know, share your traumas, share your struggles with them, and that's important. It's huge. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
I've always enjoyed being around people who are looking to improve themselves and their situations. And when I look at the idea of impermanence, you know, we talk about those valleys and stuff, you know, mountains and valleys. But I think there are some key parts of disciplines that can help navigate some of those things. And I've never been a fan of the status quo. Just things are as they are. And I mean, not that I'm saying I want to get out of taxes and stuff. Don't get me wrong. I mean, yeah, it'd be nice, I guess, but you know, there's a flip side to that as well. But I think there is something to be said about wanting to align oneself with other people who are looking to improve themselves and improve their situations, not because it's a shitty situation, but people, I think, can realize that they are stronger than they realize. And sharing, like Brad, you mentioned some of the lessons from Tribe, sharing successes and failures across the tribe, when we go through struggle and hardship, people around us can help shoulder some of that. The flip side, some of our wins, our successes, those are shared as well. I mean, you remember some of those team awards, like team awards were my absolute favorite, because that meant like we were recognized coming together and we excelled at this rather than individual awards, and that was like being around people who are looking for ways to improve themselves, what personally, professionally, spiritually, financially, however, are always looking for that horizon, like Weber was talking about. What's the next thing? How can I do better? And that's, in my mind, that's kind of how I look at impermanence, is good, bad, and everything in between. You can't stay there. It's always in a state of flux. It's always dynamic. And so looking into ways to improve and to continue is something that drives me. I don't know if you guys feel similarly like that, but yeah, like I said, that's why I've been looking forward to this discussion, is because I think accepting the dynamic nature of things, that flow, and learning how to surf, that's where magic happens, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was gonna say, to add to that, this is really, I just keep thinking about, when people run into issues and how it's difficult maybe to have that impermanence mindset. And so it kind of makes me think about how these kinds of things need to be talked about at a much younger age. These are things that we need to start getting into. I think teenagers can totally handle this idea, and it makes me think about, just imagine if you have, teenagers, maybe they make philosophy or something like that, something you have to take in high school, let's say, and you just talk about some of these concepts. And I think it's kind of like planting a seed, right? You at least, maybe you don't get into it where you're totally living in that space and operating that way, but I think it's probably, I'm guessing it's probably much harder as a 40-something-year-old guy like me to start working on that, from scratch as a full grown. Not that you can't get there. Of course, we know we can. Makes me think about Anthony Bourdain and like him taking on jiu-jitsu at an older age, and he talked a lot about that. And thinking about the word flow that has been said a lot tonight, and impermanence. And I think that's one of the things he really got from jiu-jitsu, is that he was like, you can't master this. Like, you're constantly in this struggle, and you have to be okay with being uncomfortable. And then you realize that when you're trying really hard to stop something or make something happen, like, you're actually fighting yourself. And that when you watch people in jiu-jitsu who are really good, it's like, it's this movement that doesn't look like a struggle. It's sort of a flow. And that reminds me of impermanence, as my son's about to do a tournament in 10 days or so. But this conversation was making me think about that. And yeah, getting back real quick to the youth thing, I just think that could make a really big difference. And even if we're talking about, for those of us active duty, like as an airman, getting them when they're young to start thinking through some of this. Yeah, exactly. Start thinking in this way, right? About impermanence. I think, like, saying this to like the average, 19, 20-year-old, some of those people would just be kind of mind blown. They'll just be like, yeah, that is kind of cool to think about it that way. And and then when something happens or they have moments in their lives and they can just kind of like draw on that. So yeah, I think that I know this is getting much more macro, society and stuff, but I think we could do so much of a better job of introducing some of these. There's so many things that we talk about that people at a pretty young age could handle some of these concepts, and they have no idea that these things are out there, and it could be really helpful. But I think we can help, like for me and Brad, or Ian and Aaron, we can help specifically those young folks, and for you guys, all the people you come in contact with, just giving that, because it's really gold. It really is. Like, and it shows that just a concept can change your mindset and really help you tremendously. And you've got people out there with like medications and therapies, we're doing all this stuff, and it's like, for a lot of people, just these bits of information are gold and can really change their trajectory of the stuff and how they deal with it.
What if you were able to take somebody and give them a notepad, or like set up the voice recorder on their phone and just say, okay, for the next hour, I want you to go into this room, I'm going to close the door, and I want you to sit for well, maybe an hour is like too crazy of a time period, but anyway, a period of time that makes sense for the person, and just say, I want you to just sit and notice and witness impermanence in action. I'll give you a quick definition, and then I want you to just pay attention to the thoughts as they come and go, and maybe write that down, and then just kind of calmly sit back. And it's kind of just like an awake form of meditation. This is what we do in meditation. Thought will come and go. We observe it with curiosity, no judgment, and it passes again. And then we're like, huh. But as we let these things go, then with transcendental meditation, then that's what clears the way to let you get down to a deeper level of consciousness where you're not thinking about. But you don't force yourself to not think about stuff. You just never write it down in that format. So like maybe the exercise is, for a period of time, just go in there and just write these things down. Oh, I thought about school. I thought about the upcoming match. I was a little worried about something, and boom. And then it went to there's this girl I like. Like what's her name? Write it down. Or whatever it is. It just comes and goes. And then at the end of the exercise is like, what are we going to do with all that information that is poured out of your brain? Nothing. You just observed impermanence in action through thoughts. These things are always going to come and go in your life, and thoughts are a great example because they're rattling around your brain. It's when you pick a thought and you obsess on it, or you make it real somehow, that it can do a lot of damage. And that's kind of the point of it, to understand that, hey, you went into this room with a notepad and you came out with like 10 things written down on it, and none of it's real. None of it mattered anymore. It's gone, and it's gone. And so, yeah. Oh yeah. The two wolves, right? I don't know. I wonder if that's something that I always like to think, can this be taught? When Struggle Well came up, and when Ken and Josh were talking about, okay, we've got this, we understand it, can we teach it? And that's where, Boulder Crest kind of, was born from that idea of, can this be taught? And so off they went. So I don't know. It probably can, and I'm not a clinical guy at all, and I don't claim to be. But it's a real good topic. I've enjoyed like kind of studying on it this last week. There's a lot of really good resources out there if anybody wants to, read up on that in the viewing audience. Impermanence. I think conceptualizing it is pretty straightforward. Yes, obviously things don't last forever. It's a given. Everybody should understand and know that. But then what does it mean to us? And so, like, I think at a younger age, if you grasp that concept that, yeah, I'm struggling now, I'm dealing with it now in my own way, and then it'll change something. Because I've witnessed it. My dad sat me down with a notepad when I was like 14, and we went through this exercise, and it really stuck with me, and I always did that, and I always embraced it. Yeah, this is what it's all about, and we're going to be just fine. Or we're not, and we're going to deal with it then, because I've got a track record of understanding this about myself and knowing that I can get through it until I can't, and I'll just repeat the cycle over and over again. It's not the end of anything like, I can't deal with this. It's just a helpful reframing and of everything. And I know I kind of drifted a lot from the supporting others conversation, but I kind of wanted to dive a little bit into, can this be passed on to someone in a practical way? Maybe not. Maybe it's all just a bunch of crap, right? To somebody, you know. Bah.
I loved it, Gerbo. I thought it was awesome, and I typed it down, and I plan to use it on my guys for our
Thanks,
next
buddy.
membership session.
Let me know how it goes, man. And I'm sure you can come up with, you know, maybe if writing in a room is not their gig, you know, something else fun, or making an exercise, a little trust falls off the training room table or something. You know, let me know how it goes. But I can't be held responsible if it goes terrible and everybody has a psychotic episode because of this random thing I just invented that would blow Freud's mind. Don't do that. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's the case. Steven will keep us straight.
I wonder if you could do a verbal one too for those, you know, because that could be really funny.
Yeah.
Be like this. I just had this thought. You know, I think I remember doing something like that in the program when I was in it, and people being sort of like amazed at just, oh yeah, I did have that thought, because we operate in this kind of like weird consciousness of just, it's just flowy thoughts just going through. And, you know, it might be cool to see if people, I mean, they don't have to say all the thoughts they're thinking, but, you know, the ones that
I was
are.
about to say, yeah, some of that we might want to keep to ourselves.
Absolutely. That's why the writing is best, probably.
Or just give it a code word or something. He's like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
code blue or whatever. I don't know.
No, that's awesome. I think it made me, what you were saying, Derwell, made me think about what would that mean if we were able to train, and what is the level that we would be like, yes, you get it. Like, yes, I think you've got what it, because I think it's actually physical at the end of the day. Like there's sort of like the theory, like you said, everybody can sort of get the theory, and then there's, okay, mentally and then internalizing what that means. And then I think there would be a physical result at the end of the day. It's like when you are going through some of these things, and you, like you said, that impermanence mindset should probably have a physical result. You probably can realize when you kind of go, it's going to be okay. There probably is going to be something that's calming about that. And like you said, it may then become not calm, but, you know, as you said, getting back into that cycle. And I think the mental acceptance of that and the ability to really believe in that would result in some kind of a actual physical feeling, because you will be calmer. You will probably not feel as anxious. Your heart rate would probably be able to be slower. You might be able to take a moment in the middle of the craziness. And I think it would actually feel different. So I'm not saying that that's the one thing you're looking for, but that's what I thought when you said that. Like, what would that look like to have someone trained in that, and to get to a point where you could actually say, I'm practicing impermanence. That's how I kind of see it, because it makes me think about times where I'm just like, this is nuts, but I'm going to take a little moment right now and literally think about how this is eventually going to come to pass. And sometimes I'll talk to those maybe one or two supportive people, like we were talking about before, who I know would kind of like get that and actually say those things. Like, you know, I know it's going to be okay, but right now it's a little nuts. Maybe you have that little joke back and forth that takes the tension off the top, and it allows you to kind of like, and then you're kind of like ready to re-enter the space with less weight on it.
My recent flight, and I love this. This ties into the Tag Mario movement that Bill Eaton started for us. I haven't flown anywhere in 8 months, and then a couple weeks ago I did, and I flew a lot, and I went far, and I was I was just looking at my itinerary like, holy shit, I really stacked myself up for a lot of stuff, you know. Some fun, some family travel, some work stuff, you know. I'm like, it's going to be tight in a couple places, man. Them connections are kind of, you know, whenever I hear a 45-minute connection in Atlanta, I'm like, oh, I'm screwed. But hey, yeah, it's one I got to take for my connection that I want. So I'm like, okay. So, you know, impermanence gives you, if you practice it, which I do, and you understand and believe it, which I do, it gives you just a huge weight off your shoulders, because you're like, okay, there it is. It's squared away. It can happen, and I'll make it happen. If I don't, and I get bumped, whatever, I'll deal with it, because that's what I do. Blah. Huge, you know, level of peace and tranquility amid something that looks very, very daunting and scary up front. So, but yes, even you know, Jerbo Lama is going to have some stress when he gets to the airport and finds out things are already starting to break down. Like the gate's not even, you know, the desk where you check in your bag isn't even open yet, and you're there 2 hours before the flight, and it's not even open, and so you're standing around with everybody else for an hour, and it can be kind of stressful. So what? Yeah, thank you. That's correct. And so then what I do, you know, okay, impermanence guy, I'm still getting stressed out. I'm still starting to get a little angry. So I just flipped, you know, get the phone out and be like, nah, time for a meme. I got to tag in anyway. So I got to tag Mario. So I spend a little time searching for the perfect, funny, haha, you know, and get it all set up. And then, you know, that's how I dealt with it that minute, you know. And then when I, you know, got my face out of the phone, things were opening up and life was good again. Got quickly checked in and on my way, you know, no big deal. Or I could have just, you know, not understood impermanence and been like, oh, come on, you know, and just been like, you know, gripping and clinging on to everything that's fucked up and wrong about life. And just, you know, and there were people doing that, you know, stomping around, like reacting in a way that was unhealthy and negative. Yeah, you know, impermanence is, you know, it's a real thing, man. I think it's been something that's really helped out. So to keep the crazies at bay. But there's a lot of coping mechanism that you can use to help you get there if you don't see it right away, which is, you know, sometimes that's real. You know, it's harder depending on what trauma you're going through to understand all this stuff. It's like, yeah, okay, none of that makes sense to me right now. Because yes, be that as it may, I'm still hurting. And understanding some Zen way of dealing with it or using memes is not helping me. So I guess I'm screwed. Well, okay, I guess we can talk about that, but you know, that's very real for them. And it was real for me too before I started practicing this stuff. So there's my tie-in with the Tag Mario movement and how that helps me cope and appreciate that this too shall pass.
I'm glad I could assist you in getting through those struggles.
Yeah.
You're welcome for my service.
That made me think about you know, that sometimes passerbys are supportive, right? Like in those airport times and all kinds of other situations where sometimes you just look at somebody and you're like, what are you going to do, right? You know, and like you said, there's some people like freaking out.
Oh, that's what brings people together. The ones who are,
Yeah.
misery loves company, and we're all okay. Yeah, we're all complaining together with our little winks and nods and stuff. But then we're also kind of diverting all that energy on the one who's tripping. You know, we're like, look at this freaking guy. We're like, yeah, look at that guy. You know, so you find some comfort there. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
The social side of the human animal, right? It can be positive or negative, and at the same time.
Yeah, because I know that's definitely happened to me in like the exact scenario with the airport stuff. And you know, maybe you're doing okay because you're practicing impermanence, and you kind of look around and it happens. It's happened to me multiple times in my life, and you catch eyes with somebody and they're giving you the what for, and like, what are you gonna do, right? You look at the positive. Hey, we got a hotel for the night, I guess. You know, we're gonna probably have pizza instead of some healthy stuff that I was gonna eat. The kids are going to be happy because they're eating pizza or burgers or whatever, and they're having an adventure in the hotel. And you're going to get home at some point, and then you kind of just go with that and enjoy the moment. And it is a privilege to be able to enjoy those moments. I'm not just, that there's a lot of stuff that goes into that, but I think it's a cool thing to think about, that sometimes passersby, you talk other dads at a sporting event or people at just public things, sometimes you find those moments where there's some common ground. Yeah.
Brad, we're about an hour and a half in. Looking at the notes, I think we got a lot of good stuff. We hit a lot of the things that we had discussed. A lot of good quotes. Master Gerbo, as usual, bringing the rain.
Those are tears of my enemy. He's a big hitter. Long. The llama.
The llama, Gerbo llama. I like that. I'm going to use that. You've been promoted from Robert Duvall to Gerbo llama.
I like that. I think I'll take it. Gunga Lunga, or whatever the Caddyshack quote is.
Yeah.
If we're ready to wrap it up, got a good quote to kind of close it on whenever you're ready.
Yeah. I was just thinking about opening it up to anybody if they had any final thoughts on the topic of impermanence or anything that we discussed. Kind of open up the floor for awkward silence, and then, Brad, if you want to lead us off here. But yeah, the only other thing I had was I was thinking about control and the illusion of control. Gerbo, you were talking about, the situation at the airport. And I think sometimes we think and we have the attitude that we are in control of how things go. And sometimes we don't like it when we realize, or when reality smacks us in the face, that we don't completely control this situation. And that's where embracing impermanence comes in. Like Steven, you mentioned, well, shit, I guess we're going to spend the night in a hotel. We're going to eat junk food, but the kids are going to like it. I can't control this situation. Sometimes EOD people don't like to be told they can't control the outcome of the situation, but that impermanence kind of helps us realize that there are other opportunities there. So that's all I wanted to end with. If anybody else has any final thoughts, or Brad, but yeah.
Well, I'll jump on control real quick, because that's a great point, and we've talked about that before. But one thing you can take away from it is that you do get to control your response, and that's a comforting thing. You can control how you're going to respond to that shitty situation or that happy situation. That's all you. You still have the control to do that, and only you. And I think too many times we give that power to others. They're going to control how happy or how sad I am, and I've been very guilty of that too. If I feel like I want to be in control of my situation. When somebody else takes that from me and says, they read it a different way, or read what I'm doing in a way that's not reflective of where my mind and heart is, it sucks. It's like having a toxic boss, something like that, where now my whole day is being dictated by a toxic person who doesn't get it. So it's a little harder to see where that control plays into how I respond to this person, So maybe impermanence helps there too. Maybe it says, yeah, I just have to recognize that I'm in an unwinnable, shitty situation right here while this staff meeting is happening. And in 20 minutes, it's going to end, and I'm going to walk out the door, and I'm going to now get to do what I want. And like maybe, brain dump that thing that just happened, or maybe confront it and come back and circle back to it and have a conversation, whatever it is. But in the moment, we do have the power to control our response. Not easy. None of this is easy. And that's why I guess I'll close with, my thought on this was, first of all, in my notes were, yes, let's understand impermanence and define it. Number two, how do we apply it in our daily life? And I think from all of my research in the last week and in the conversations here, I'm coming back to, you just have to do it and practice it and be intentional about it, and take a pause and do it. If you don't meditate, people out there in the viewing audience, you can still do it. You can still just sit quietly and just kind of think about it and be like, huh, okay, I see that now in practice. And if you want to do that more and more and more, you'll get better and better at it. And it goes back to my example of old, people who are old and wise. That's why they're old and wise, because they were young and dumb and they figured shit out and they got smarter and smarter as they went through life. And now they approach struggle with a grace and with a strength that is very inspiring. And you're wondering, gosh, how did they get there? How did they get so calm? I'd be freaking out. Well, because they practice it a lot, because they get it. And if you don't have time to wait to get old and wise, then I want to put a plug in for just meditating, however you do it. There's lots of formats you can use that just let you notice these things, let them go, watch them come and go. And then when you come out of your meditation, you understand and appreciate that that's life. That's my friends. That's my family. We all come and go. And so that's my closing thoughts. This is the awkward silence part Mario was talking about.
Yeah. Weber, I was thinking we got to get you like on TikTok or something, but like the whole thing where this too shall pass. Like if we can have that playing as a loop, so I can have that as like my ringtone or something, and be like, this too shall pass. I was thinking about that earlier. That's a good reminder. You said that before, so I just wanted to publicly thank you for continuing to say that.
I'll do it, but I will only do it if it's mashed up to trials and tribulations as faced by Jack Burton in the cinematic masterpiece known as Big Trouble in Little China. Just small little snippets, when he's in a tough spot. This too shall pass.
You know what old Jack Burton says?
What the hell?
What the hell?
Who's Jack Burton? Me. I'm Jack Burton.
With eggs, 6 demon bag, and the whole.
It's so good.
I love it.
Great. What are we supposed to do with it? Drink it. Thought so. Okay.
There's a lot of hells.
Great movie.
Classic. Very much so. Is that your closing thoughts, Webb?
That's it.
All right, bro. Steven, what you got?
Steven, you always got something really good to say. So don't be all coy. You got some truth bombs.
I've just been learning. But I did think about, impermanence really is something that it's not hard to start. And I think that's kind of an awesome outlook when I'm thinking about passing this along to my guys. I'm like, you know what? It's not hard to start this. It doesn't take a massive amount of energy or thought. I think to get good at it, you would have to, but that's kind of my thought as I go off into trying to figure out ways to get this to guys to put it in their toolbox. It's not hard to start. And thank you guys for all the knowledge bombs and experiences.
So with that, I'll wrap this up. A couple of closing thoughts and then a closing quote that again came from the illustrious Dan. But my thoughts on impermanence. There's been so much awesome things said just in this little get together today, whatever time it is where you're at. To me, the big thing is it can be a great useful tool to help you get unstuck and stay unstuck. if you find yourself reliving old memories, reliving the past, or stuck in the past, because that's no way to live. It's much better to by no means avoid or forget about the past, but at the same time, know that it's in the past and know that tomorrow is coming, and there's a very real awesome opportunity tomorrow, whatever it is. So go grab it. And the quote that I want to end with is a Winston Churchill quote that's pretty great that ties to this. It's, if we open a quarrel between past and present, we shall find that we have lost the future. So with that, mic dropped. Can't see my hands off the screen. It's over here. So thanks everybody for joining us. We really appreciate it. Hopefully everybody got something out of this.